Welcome to another episode of In Case You Missed It with Khristina Williams. And WNBA free agency has officially tipped off. And in case you missed it, fam, how are we feeling about Messy Monday? Day one of WNBA free agency came in hot. The Chicago Sky sending two-time All-Star Angel Reese to the Atlanta Dream for draft picks, a move that was equal parts bold, surprising, and somehow very on brand for the Chicago Sky. Uh, Joining me today to, I guess, break this all down is Shakeia Taylor, a reporter at The Athletic, and she's covered the Sky extensively. She has a deep understanding of the organization and Reese's impact off the court. And then we have Fam to the show because he's been on the show so many times. We have Nekias Duncan, co-host of the Dunker Spot podcast on Yahoo Sports, and he's going to be here to help us break down and make sense of some of the X's and O's from the basketball side. Welcome to In Case You Missed It, Shakeia and Nekias.
Thanks for having us.
Always a pleasure to be on.
Listen, always a pleasure to have y'all. So before we get into the crazy WNBA Messy Monday free agency stuff, I feel like UCLA winning the championship at the Final Four was kind of forgotten about in the news cycle because of the Angel Reese news. So I just want your honest reactions to UCLA women's basketball winning their first title.
Go ahead.
I think quickly for me, like between the Angel news that we're going to get to and between all of the Dawn and Gino stuff from the Final Four matchup, it just felt like everything that happened with UCLA over the weekend got kind of overshadowed. So it was cool for them to kind of have the reminder and to have that kind of statement game on Sunday against South Carolina. And to the basketball of it was such a clinic on both ends of the floor. The way that they were able to dominate the paint on both ends, the way they were able to wall things off with their coverage, their physicality off the ball, defensively, offensively. Huge fan of not just using Lauren Betts and getting her touches, but the way they spaced around that. South Carolina, as great as their defense was, could never really get a beat on UCLA on either end of the floor. So it was just a culmination of what this season has been for them overall. And again, after all of the news cycle things that happened over the weekend, it was cool for them to have that Sunday. Like, we are a dominant group, and we are going to prove to you that we are a dominant group.
I was really happy for UCLA winning. I will say I agree with Nekias that it went really quickly. Like, the attention on them went really quickly, no matter how hard everyone has tried to kind of, push back on some of the unnecessary storylines. It's kind of unfortunate for them, but I hope that they as a team are having a blast, right? Like, that they're just having the time of their lives. It was such a good win. It was was it the most exciting game once we started getting into like BTA territory? But but good for them. And I have a feeling we'll see both teams again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And kudos to the seniors at UCLA for getting the job done. Both Lauren Betts and her sister Sienna, they came on this show last October before their season started. And it was really interesting to hear from Lauren, especially with how their season ended last year in the Final Four when they got eliminated by UConn, who was the eventual champions in 2025. She said that she wanted to come back, one, for her sister, but two, to try to get the job done and winning that championship just to, get sent off into the sunset as she prepares for the WNBA draft. And she knew in October that she was going to win that championship. She said it. She was like, at the end of the season, we are winning a championship. And she just kept her head up the whole season and got the job done. And shout out to Kiki Rice, Gabriella, and the rest of the team, and Coach Corey Close, who just has a different coaching philosophy. I feel like people really don't give Corey her kudos in terms of her coaching style. It took 15 years to get it done. So the UCLA program, they believed in Corey. They believed in her philosophy. And so, yeah, I'm happy they won as well.
I think people will believe in her coaching now. After that game, people will believe in her coaching now.
She's definitely going to have, an easy way to get players in the transfer portal for sure. Over 1,000 players are currently in that transfer portal. I think the hardest part for her is probably going to have to be to rebuild the team to get back there, since 6 people are graduating as seniors. And so, yeah, how do you rebuild that and get back to a championship contended team? That's going to be the next task for UCLA. But shout out to UCLA. Just wanted to give them, their kudos, their celebrations, because I did feel like that win got lost in the news cycle. And that's the first NCAA title in their school's history for the women's basketball program. So, yeah, shout outs to them. All right, let's move on to Messy Mondays. And for all of the WNBA fans that's listening, we kind of coined every Monday in the WNBA news cycle as Messy Monday because it goes down. It feels like everything goes down on a Monday in the WNBA. And so, as we mentioned at the top of the show in the intro, Angel Reese kicked off WNBA free agency. Chicago Sky, they let go their franchise. I don't want to say they let go. They traded their franchise star to the Atlanta Dream for a 2027 first round draft pick and a 2028 first round draft pick. I'm going to start with you, Shakeia. Just from your perspective of covering the Chicago Sky, how surprising is it to see them move on from Angel Reese so quickly?
I gotta be honest, I didn't think it was that surprising. I think from just a cultural perspective, right? Like the way this team has operated just since the beginning, not even in the last few years, since the beginning. If you have any indication of how they've operated, there was always probably a thought or a fear, if you were a fan, that this would happen. We could kind of see it unraveling from day one, I think, right? Like Angel came in and she came in with her own motion. She came in with her own everything, her own visibility. And when you have a league like the W that is growing at a rapid pace, but people within it may not necessarily be ready for that growth, depending on, what level we're talking about. Someone like her can be considered kind of threatening to the status quo because you instantly are charged with doing better. So this trade didn't shock me. I think the reasons after the fact were kind of the thing that where I was like, come on, like, come on.
Yeah, I guess just to bounce off of what Shakia said, I think you have to be ready for the Angel Reese experience, both on and off the court, right? Because I think, as you mentioned, she brings her own motion. You have to be strong enough organizationally to be able to handle that and also foster that to help that grow and to make sure that it is uplifting for your entire organization. And if you can't handle that, then I think that's where you get some of the chinks in the armor. It's where you start to feel some of the cracks in the foundation. And as Shakia's already kind of alluded to, we've had multiple stars for different reasons leave the Chicago Sky before they were destined to do so. And a lot of that is because of a shaky foundation and questionable, I'd say, leadership from the very top that kind of permeates through all of this. And so when you're not ready for that, it's easy for you to find yourself in situations like this. And so am I surprised that an Angel Reese trade kicked off free agency week? Like, yes. But the concept of Angel being traded based on what the Sky have been and how they've handled stars, what this last season was and how it ended, where it is, the articles heard around the world, I guess, and how people have interpreted those. You get the 1/2 suspension. We just don't see Angel at this point to close out the year. Like, it just kind of felt like they didn't want to enter this free agency period with any any kind of, like, I don't want to say cloud because that's too much of a negative tense, but more so like we want clarity into what this is going to be. If we're going to have Angel, we want to make sure this relationship is sound. If it is not, we should probably cut ties now so we can actually enter this new era without having to, you know,
Yeah.
have these player meetings and agent meetings like, okay, what's happening here type meeting.
What I think
Yeah.
is so interesting is that the Sky took this moment to change the roster, but nothing else about the team. Like, I'm not sure if they have any sort of understanding that everything that happens with the team starts with culture and it starts with front office culture. And throughout the years of this team being around, what have they been around for, like, 20 years now? Um, it's not a team that fosters any sort of culture. So you're going to continue to have this sort of roster turnover, be stuck in the rebuild because nothing changes at the top.
Yeah, I think that this all comes at an interesting time. I mean, there's a podcast circulating around, I think it's called the Sixth Woman Podcast, featuring Rebecca Allen, who spent time there. And she described her time with the New York Liberty, the Phoenix Mercury, and then the Chicago Sky. And she described her time with the Sky as a little miserable. And that speaks to the culture, right? And the turnaround. Like, players for years have been complaining about, the organization from the inside out. And, they've had a lot of great talent come through the Chicago Sky organization, but they failed historically to retain that talent. And also, trading your two-time All-Star, someone that you drafted, someone that brings so much to the game, someone who is a face of the league, it has me scratching my head a little bit, especially because according to ESPN, they said that Angel did not request the trade, but the two sides worked together to find a situation that worked on both sides. And we'll get into a little bit later about what they got in return for Angel, but I'm just not seeing the mathing with the decision to do that. But I guess it works because she's in the third year of her rookie contract. And so maybe they wanted to get draft picks before she hit that year 4, and they would have to decide whether they want to extend or not. I guess I'm trying to make it make sense. But the guy is, how do you see Angel fitting into what the Dream are currently trying to build?
I think when you look at what the Dream were last season, they are a team that wants to work or can work inside out or outside in. And there's a level of inversion that they can have with their offense. And so the fact that they were comfortable using Bree Jones as a hub, Brittany Griner as a hub, Naz Hillman, who had a tremendous season, as a hub, it's easy to see how Angel slots into that, to where you can put the ball in her hands and now you can let her make playmaking decisions. We go to one side with Ryan Howard, we go to the other side with Alicia Gray. If Angel gets a rebound, which she is the best rebounder that we have in the league and one of the greatest, if not the greatest in WNBA history already, she can grab and go. She can lead fast breaks. We saw that grow in her second year in Chicago, getting more responsibility, more freedom to do that. I think she should slot right into that with the Atlanta Dream as well. And defensively, I'm super excited to see what this Dream defense is going to look like, with Angel being able to guard on the perimeter, her being able to defend multiple types of players as well. Like, I think a quartet of Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard, Angel Reese, and Naz Hillman, if you're closing games that way, it's hard to find a better like group of 4 better than that defensively. At the very least, the list is incredibly short if you can find more. So she slots into what they already want to do defensively. I think she's going to enhance what they're doing offensively. And she's also in a spot to where she doesn't have to carry any sort of real load offensively as well. Like, you can just get the best parts of Angel's growing versatility without her having to be the offense or having to be the defense.
I don't know how Dan is going to make the numbers work, but they have Tina Pow. Hopefully Jordan Canada returns. I think that Jordan Canada is one of the best point guards in the league when healthy. She'll finally get a guard outside of Sloot who can make post-entry passes to her. But no, I like what you said in terms of how she'll fit into the roster, assuming that, you know, those 4 are going to come back. But Dan has a lot of work to do in terms of getting that math right under the new CBA. Because those are a lot of big name players. Alicia Gray, she was an MVP candidate last year. You want to throw the books at her, right? Like, you have to throw the books at someone like Alicia Gray. You have Ryan Howard, who they drafted. You have Naz Hillman, who was the 6th Woman of the Year. So, I mean, these are players who are going to command, you know, big, hefty salaries. And so hopefully everyone's able to buy into that system and that win now culture. I think it'll fit, though. The players seem like online, like they all want to return to the Dream, but we still have a lot of free agency left to go. All right, Shakeia, so you've been covering Angel a lot lately, profiling her. You already talked about what Chicago might be losing beyond just the production, but how real was her presence in just shaping the identity of that team? And where do you see the identity of this guy going moving forward?
Well, I think she was a much needed young star. Chicago right now, across teams, right? We have the young star. You have Caleb Williams with the Bears. You have Connor Bedard with the Blackhawks. You have Pete Crow Armstrong with the Cubs. And that is just the nature of the city right now, right? Every team has been in some sort of rebuild or trying to come back or, you know, trying to get back to winning, turn things around. Her and Camilla's presence here was huge. Something I write about a lot is hope. When it comes to sports fandom, hope is a drug. It is the driving force behind so much, right? Like, loving a team, that's hope, especially one that has been as bad as the Sky have been. Even if you count the championship years, that championship wasn't supposed to happen if you look at how that season started, right? So Angel's presence, it brought hope. There again, a young star. She was fun. She was also a little bit visible here. Like I remember seeing on social media, she would, she drove around giving out boxes of her cereal, or she had different activations around the city. There was a ton of excitement around her because one of the tough things that this guy have had to deal with is frankly getting butts in seats, like having people in the building. I was going to Wintrust during that 2021 season when it first started, right? We were social distancing because we could. There wasn't a reason to have to sit next to somebody. You could have a whole row to yourself. Like I watched that team sort of come from the ground. And now with her presence, or it was, right? The arena would be relatively full. People were coming to see Angel and Angel only, which is kind of sad for a team that won a chip a few years ago. But she meant a lot to the fans. She had her own fan base. I noticed on social media instantly people were already like, okay, so what do I do with my Sky merch now? Like they are jumping ship. I think the impact will be noticeable immediately. What, people in the crowd, the way Atlanta is selling tickets now, the way, she's just going to have movement. I keep saying that is something that I think the Sky didn't consider, is you're not just losing on the court production, you're losing off the court marketability. You're using social capital, which a lot of players aren't going to bring to you. And we're running out of those sorts of ready-made stars, so to speak, with this draft class coming.
Yeah, no, that's certainly an interesting point. And to your point, I mean, when you think about the women athlete in general, right? Angel Reese embodies everything that a woman athlete should be in 2026. She's a superstar. She can produce on the court. We know how sports intersect with so many different industries, and she's tapping into every single one of those things, and she's checking all the boxes. And to your point, the Chicago Sky is one of the last franchises that's owned by an independent owner. We see the tide turning in the W, where now it's a lot of NBA affiliated ownership. The Connecticut Sun is going to be sold to the Houston Rockets owner. And so things are changing in the W. And I honestly think the only way to change the culture in the Sky is to force a sell. You have to force a sale to a new ownership because it's a new day in this league. The standards are being risen in terms of the bare minimum that players will accept. This season alone, they're still going to be in a rec center gym, not
Listen,
having
I've
a
been there.
practice facility. It's becoming harder and harder for free agents to want to go there because of the culture thing. And now you lose your star in Angel Reese. Yes, Camila Cardozo is still there, but lots of question marks on the Sky and their future. Nekias. So in this deal, Chicago Sky, they were able to get a 2027 first round pick, which to my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, the Mystics have the right to swap with the Sky for that pick.
They have the pick that they're getting from Atlanta. That is just going to be theirs.
Right.
Chicago's own pick is the one that the Mystics have swap rights on in 2027.
Got you. All right. And then they also obtained a 2028 first round draft pick as well. Realistically, do you think that they can turn this draft capital into a contending roster?
I think for me, like, I hope that they don't try to. And I say that because we are fresh off of them having the number 3 overall pick last year and trading that plus the swap rights for this 27 first for Ariel Atkins, who is a multi-time all-star, multi-time all-defensive player, like objectively a good player, but someone that I don't know if I would have felt comfortable trading a top 3 pick for in a draft play as low as this last year's. And I said that when the early reporting was coming out about the Sky considering this. And so now that we get to this year and you see the year that Sonia Citron just had, you eventually trade Angel Reese. And now if you are bad again this upcoming season, which we're going to see how Chicago fills out their roster, but if they're bad again, they essentially have zero chance at the number 1 overall pick next year. Because like even if they have the worst record and end up winning that, the Mystics are just like, cool, yeah, we'll take that. That's cool.
Right.
Enjoy
Right.
drafting wherever we landed. And so in a literal sense, like, yes, there's an opportunity for them to still land a really good prospect in 27 and or 28, or let's use one or both of those picks to trade at some point in the near future. So in a literal sense, yes, they can. But I'm just kind of more broadly curious about how they evaluate draft picks in general?
Can
Or is
I?
it
No, I wanna bring something up to you about what you're saying, right? We're basically talking about math, and Khristina has said the math is not mathing. And I think that is the fundamental issue here, right? Is they are constantly trying to undo their own math, like their own equations. Oh, this is what we decided to do. Wait, no, we're gonna go like it's just a constant undoing of their own decisions that is baffling. Right? Like there's no clear direction. There's no clear path. Every year there's a different mood for the draft. The math, it just ain't there. Like they're not even paying attention to their own math, right? Like you're doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. That is the definition of what? Insanity.
Insanity. But also to your point, didn't Nadia Robinson say like they want to contend for a championship every year? Well,
Correct.
let's evaluate what's happened in the last 2 years. As you've said, you've given away the number 3 pick. You swapped it with the Mystics. Sonia Citron's upside was she was a WNBA All-Star her rookie season, all rookie WNBA team for Errol Atkins. And what was the record? The Sky didn't even make the playoffs this year. And then you evaluate what you've done in this offseason so far. You trade away your franchise player. And then today, as we are recording this, extend the core qualifying offer to Errol Atkins, which Nekias and I, we were talking about this via text. And Nekias, you said maybe they'll use that to, I don't want to paraphrase your words. Maybe you can say it, but maybe they'll use that as some sort of capital to get something in return.
I think with the Errol Atkins bit, if I'm willing to trade a top 3 pick to get her in the building, yeah, I'm going to do whatever I can to retain her. Because, like, the optics of trading essentially Sonia Citron and the possibility of getting the number 1 pick in next year's draft, and then just letting the person you acquired walk for nothing months after that, like, I don't know optically how you come back from something like that. And so, yeah, this feels more procedural. Like, Errol Atkins getting the core designation doesn't guarantee that she's going to be a member of the Sky. Like we have recently seen, we are coring this player so we can then later trade them, Satu Sabali, Kelsey Plum. So, like, I will leave the door open for that, but it is clear that they value her. So I wasn't super surprised by them making sure, at bare minimum, you were going to be here next year. But quickly to Shakeia's point, like the fact that they keep trying to accelerate this. I don't think it is inherently wrong to want to win and to win immediately, but you have to have the foundation in place to be able to build that quickly. And so when you have the Marina Maybe trade, where you give up a whole bunch of picks and end up also giving up the rights to Leonie Febish, which I'm not going to begrudge people for not thinking Leonie was going to turn into one of the best 3-and-D wings in basketball. But you do give up all all of that. And then you trade Marina.
I'm going to begrudge them, Nekias.
I feel like everything goes back to that Marina Maybe.
I'm going to begrudge them, Nekias. I'm going to begrudge them. Because listen, we got to stop hedging and stop letting people off. Like, this is supposed to be a professional sports team. They have zero introspection, zero reflection, zero looking in the mirror. I wrote Khristina listed multiple stars, players of value, who they have just let walk for whatever reason, by choice or by force. We absolutely are begrudging them every bad decision that they have made. We are going to now take a fine-tooth comb. I think fans are doing that right now. They're looking at the Sky and saying, wait a minute, why did they do that? What are they doing? These are fair questions to ask. And like, I have no issues with the GM. But when you hire an inexperienced GM and say, we expect to be in the playoffs every year, how does that make sense? Let's begrudge them, Nekias. Let's.
No, I agree. There has to be some sort of accountability taken for some of the moves. As you said, the math is not mathing. You've had several stars come through that organization in the last few years. If you look at the last 2 or 3 years, Marina Mabry's, the Courtney Williams, the Tisha Heidemann, Candace Parker, who went to the Aces, Azurá Stevens, Gabby Williams, the list goes on, Cheyenne Parker, the list goes on. And some of these people have won championships after leaving the Sky. Some of these people have been in the finals after leaving the Sky. Pieces that have helped contend for a championship title. So why didn't it work within the Sky organization when they had those pieces? We have to start looking at the higher ups because it's obviously not, I'm not going to say it's obviously not the players, but at some point, you got to look at the common denominator in all of this. And to the next question, Shakeia, we talked about Chicago historically struggling to retain some of those big names. From your time covering them, what have you heard about like the behind the scenes of why it's so hard for them to try to sustain the success of the 2021 team or just post the James Wade era in general?
The lack of success comes from a couple of different ways. It's a lack of investment, right? I have been to their practice facility. I have seen the kids playing and the grandmas working out, right? I have attempted to look for a place to use the restroom just like they have. Like, I have been there. There's a Panera in the parking lot, right? Like, I used to grab my coffee on the way there. Like, it is definitely not a place where you would walk in and think, I am seeing elite athletes. I am seeing some of the best women's basketball players in the world walking in this facility while little Johnny is having his birthday party down the hallway. That is a complete lack of investment, you know what I mean? To the point down to they play at an arena they share with a college team. If either of you were here for the All-Star game Chicago hosted in 2022, you'll remember that they didn't have access to their own arena for the majority of the weekend because it was booked by an outside event, right? That is a problem. That is a severe lack of investment in a city where every other team has their own property, has their own facility to play. I mean, just treating them better, bare minimum starts right there. Like, we want you to be healthy. We want you to be safe. We don't want people approaching you. All those things factor into the player's quality of life. Then you have what appears to be an owner who might not want to spend. Something that I haven't seen too many people discussing as far as the Reese trade is, what if they just don't want to pay her? With that new CBA, right? Like, she is a 2-time All-Star. If I am thinking correctly, she would be due. She'd be due for a nice pay bump. Maybe they didn't want to pay her. Maybe they didn't want to give her that, right? They are known to be a cheap team, however you look at it. The first point I made kind of ties into that. I think the players have been spot on. Where they have to live is far from the arena. They're called a Chicago team, but everything about the team is very suburban focused, right? The Alters and everyone around the team, they're in the suburbs. That team plays on the South Side. Like, there is a cultural disconnect between not just the Chicago Sky front office and the WNBA, but between the Chicago Sky front office and the city of Chicago. There should have been a ton more of embracing of the city, the way Angel and the city sort of embraced each other. The things that you hear from players are not even things that you would expect, right? Like, just little basic amenities that you would expect from a professional organization, they don't have, and they're still trying to get. So they're getting left behind. Angel was excited because she's going somewhere where they're putting real investment into the team. That's kind of all these women all want and deserve, is the investment. I'm working.
But if the WNBA can somewhat get allegedly involved in the Connecticut Sun selling to Houston, it might be time for them to step in and do the same with this ownership group, because as you mentioned, with this new CBA, salaries are increasing, standards are increasing, teams need to have up to par practice facilities. They need to be able to hire staff to take care of these players from a health and recovery perspective as well, the bare minimum. Angel had her own team doctors and trainers and things helping her out, according to multiple reports. And that's just something that a professional athlete at the top 1% should not even be thinking about in terms of playing for an organization. They should provide that, as you said, it's the bare minimum. Nekias, I want to go to you. Obviously, we know Atlanta just added Angel Reese, but free agency is still unfolding as we're recording this. From your perspective, what more do they need to do to maximize her impact and get closer to being a championship contending team?
I think for me, I am curious to see what the Dream do at point guard and what they do at backup center more than anything. Because if I am just anticipate, I would imagine Bree Jones is back. Obviously, Angel Reese is baked in. Nas Hillman is a free agent, but she's restricted. I am curious to see like how much money they want to allocate towards their front court. Does that mean Nas Hillman is more available than what should be based on the year that she just had? Or are they fine with having Bree Jones, Angel Reese, Nas Hillman as kind of like your three primary front court players that you're going to have in the rotation? So I'm curious to see what they do there. Point guard is going to be interesting to me because I think the shooting of Tahina Pau should absolutely pop with this group, but she is still growing defensively. Jordan Canada, when healthy, one of the best point of attack defenders that we have in the league, but teams are very comfortable letting her take jump shots. We're fine helping off, etc. So if you're thinking about playoff ceiling, like what does that look like? So do you bring Jordan Canada back on a short-term deal? Are you just turning the keys over to Tahina Pau? Are you bringing in another short-term veteran point guard that can maybe shoot a little better, but you still have the room for Tahina to kind of snatch that spot as the year goes on? Those are probably the two things I'm looking at more. And like quiet as kept, losing Maya Caldwell in the expansion draft, not going to be the biggest name, but she is one of the few like pure I can knock down threes and also I can defend multiple position wings that we have in the W. Losing her in the expansion draft, I want to see how they replenish the wing room as well. It can't just
But
be
also,
Alicia
there
Ryan.
seems to be some sort of point guard shortage in the W. I spoke to Sue Bird about this in like 2024, but you just don't have the highest level of talent right now today in the W to do some of that. I mean, when you look at the draft, it's very guard heavy this year, but who would you possibly see if not Jordan Canada?
Like on that front, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's something that you address with the draft in particular. Like, I don't want the point guard spot to be rookie plus second year player, especially when you are looking to contend right now. But I think my base level answer is I would like a point guard in which defenses have to respect outside of 15 feet.
That's fair. That's fair. The Indiana Fever extended the core qualifying offer to our girl Kelsey Mitchell on the NBC broadcast earlier this year. I know Caitlin Clark had mentioned that that was like the first order of business for the Indiana Fever. The team went to the semifinals last year in the WNBA playoffs, and they're really looking to continue to build on that core of Aaliyah Boston, Caitlin Clark, and Kelsey. I think that it's long overdue to pay Kelsey and give her the bag. But what are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree. I agree. First of all, I'm from Ohio, so she's always gonna have my support. But second, like, I agree. She's done a lot for that team. She's been important to them and is important to them. I think very important to their future. I think the connection with Kelsey and Caitlin is critical. I also think keeping your team together is ideal. A team that works together, right? It's ideal. Look at the Indiana Pacers, not to cross leagues, but you guys know I cover the NBA. Like, keeping continuity is huge. It's huge, especially in the W where you have so few players, right? There's less than 200 W players active. So that's significant when you're trying to achieve something. They did a little bit this past season and they're trying to do a little bit more. And the important thing is like keeping this team together.
I think for me, like bringing Kelsey Mitchell back, or at the very least coring her so you have a level of optionality if you want to do something else, is just going to be a no-brainer from the Fever side. I think the most interesting thing for me with the Fever, less this year, but especially moving forward, is how they're going to balance the salaries on their roster moving forward. Because as alluded to a little bit earlier, Caitlin Clark has already made an all-W team. Aaliyah Boston has already made an all-W team. They're going to be eligible for not just the normal rookie scale bump-ups with this new CBA. They're going to be max eligible soon. Like Aaliyah Boston is going to be max eligible this offseason, I believe. And Caitlin should be eligible for some sort of max extension next offseason. It's going to get tight very quickly. And so yes, bring back Kelsey Mitchell because she is still one of the best guards in basketball. Her partnership with Aaliyah Boston and their handoffs and pick and rolls is pristine. Her catching these long outlets from Caitlin in transition obviously helps, and the gravity that Caitlin and Aaliyah have opened up perimeter looks for Kelsey Mitchell, so you want to keep that together. I am kind of curious how long they're going to be able to keep those three together in particular, just because they're just going, it's just going to start getting tighter for them. It's a testament because of how good Caitlin and Aaliyah have been so early in their careers, but hey, we still got a hard cap. It's a higher cap, but it's a hard cap nonetheless. So I'm curious to see like how they begin to maneuver this. And even with the core designation, it's a 1 year max, super max offer sheet. They can negotiate it elsewhere. Like this can turn into Kelsey Mitchell 3 years, whatever figure. So I kind of wonder if they do want to have her long term, are they able to negotiate more years but kind of lower the salary to make it more tenable to keep those three together?
But would you do that? I'm being honest, like as a player who has already been underpaid, so to speak, for some years now, would you do that? Would you stick with a team and get underpaid again when you could get more? I'm not really asking you
Not
specific.
with this new CBA. I wouldn't be
Right.
underpaid. I think in the previous CBA, players felt more comfortable with taking less, especially the superstars. But Kelsey, she's been long overdue for a huge payday. She's worked her ass off to get to this point, and you gotta pay what you owe. So if I was Kelsey, I know she's gonna be one of the highly coveted, free agents. Obviously, they extended the core qualifying offer because they know even last season in the off season, she was just like, yeah, I'm interested in listening to other offers. You know what I mean? Like she said that last season out of her mouth publicly. So of course, when that new money comes, they already knew. They already knew. Like we have to try to lock her down. And so if I'm Kelsey, I'm not taking less. I'm not taking less if I'm Kelsey. Absolutely not.
Understood. Like, I guess if the question is like, would you rather have 1.4 versus 3 for 3? Like, is that enough to where I am still getting the much deserved super pay raise while also locking in a level of stability for myself with a team that I feel like I can actually win with? Like, I feel like it's a worthwhile conversation to have at the very least. I would not begrudge Kelsey Mitchell to both of your points, just saying, actually, this is the max dollar figure that I can get here. I want to take this 1 year deal. And then next year, when I can't be cored anymore, you either need to pay up again or I will absolutely go elsewhere. She's well within her right to do that.
Yeah.
For me, if I'm FIBA front office, I'm at least broaching this with her, like, hey, we love you, we value you, we feel like you really connect our two young stars. Can we lock down something longer term that helps you stay here, gets you paid, keeps you respected, make sure you feel respected, and also we can build around all three of y'all in a way to where you can actually win championships.
It seems like the future of the WNBA in terms of super teams with this new CBA mean in the next couple years, it may be the end of the super team era of the W if GMs have to figure out the math and how to make it work. I feel like teams like the Aces, the Liberty, they're going to have a lot of hard work to do in terms of trying to crunch the numbers and retain, their superstars.
I think if the trends continue, if the league continues to grow at the pace it is, right, that we'll be having this conversation again in a couple years, like much sooner than we probably anticipated. Because ultimately, you have some owners in the league who absolutely want to pay their players well, who absolutely, the same ones who were like willing to throw in charter flights before charter flights were a thing, right? Like you have some owners who absolutely are like, hey, I will throw a bag. Look at how much Mark Davis loves the Aces. Like he wears an Aces t-shirt under a blazer for Raiders events. Like those are clearly his babies. So when you have owners like that who care or seem to care and have the money, I think we'll start to see an adjustment in the, as far as that starts to look is, hey, this is a franchise valued at, what are the Aces valued at? Is it like $1 billion now? But it's
Not a billion, but
significant.
a couple
hundred million.
millions.
There we
Yeah.
go.
It's up
Like I
there.
knew they were valued pretty high. So if that continues, if that trend continues, we will start to see, I think, a shift in ownership philosophy. I don't think anyone at the top expected this sort of change, and now that it's here, I think we'll see it move a lot quicker than it has in the past. Because when an investment starts making you money, do you stop it? Right? Like that's kind of what I'm looking at it from.
Yeah, and then you have the expansion teams come in Philly, Detroit, Cleveland, and so it just makes sense that owners will start to move like that, especially because now it's turning to NBA affiliated ownership. Mostly, those are the ownership groups that are getting awarded these teams versus back in the day where it's like the independent ownership. Again, Mohegan Tribe sold to an NBA affiliated owner. We don't know the future of the Chicago Sky, but at some point they're gonna have to make a decision. But moving right along, also on Messy Monday, the Washington Mystics and GM Jamila Wideman have parted ways over strategic differences. The team announced that via a statement. Mystics head coach Sidney Johnson will now assume basketball operations with the support of existing Mystic staff. Okay, what was your first reaction to this statement from the Mystics.
Why did they do that? Was my initial thought. Like, you were coming off of her taking the job last year and not just executing this trade with the Sky that helped set them up and getting the pick swap in 27. It just felt like they hit on so many other margin moves around that. And this is how you get, entering the All-Star break at the very least, like, oh, the Mystics are just a playoff team right now. Then you get the Brittany Sykes trade and things kind of go haywire from there. But like, we have nailed the draft, we have nailed some margin moves, and we have a whole lot of pick equity moving forward. Like, what is it, 3 or 4 first round picks this year for them if they want to? Now,
Yes.
I don't think they use and or roster all 4 of those. But the fact that you have them means let me combine 2 of these to move up if I really want to do something. Let me take one of these first round picks, trade it for a future first round pick later, and help them set me up for something else. Like, they just have a level of optionality. So there's only so much that I can say without knowing a bunch of people in the building and having background on like how personalities mesh or anything like that. For me, it was like she did a really good job. I am not losing that after a singular season. It just didn't make sense to me. So when I saw the report and it is, serious strategic differences, I'm just like, okay, this feels like either we want to accelerate this build and she doesn't want to, or we need to absolutely keep player X and y'all don't want to, or vice versa. But even with that, like, that shouldn't have been enough for this to end in we do not want you here anymore. So like, I feel like there's a piece of this that is just missing. But from the outside looking in, I'm just like, why on earth would you let her go based on the job that she did?
Yeah. Shakeia, I want to throw it to you because when you look at the Chicago Sky situation, it's a GM making decisions where everyone's like, what is going on? And then you look at the Mystics, and from the outside looking in, as Nekias said, it's a GM who was able to make something out of nothing. I mean, the Mystics post 2019 championship, they wanted to rebuild. Elena Deladon retired. I did a panel with Sheila Johnson last year at the Jackie Robinson Museum in New York, and she said on the panel that they wanted to sort of clean house and establish a new identity post the Tebows. And so that's exactly what they brought Jamila in to do. And it seemed like she was doing such a great job with being able to, get rookies like Sonia Citron and Kiki Arief, get the draft picks in the capital. When you look at these two different situations and how they contrast, what does it tell you about how different organizations sort of value leadership?
I'm sure these teams are good examples of valuing leadership. I'm being very sincere here, right? Like, you have the Sky who will hire an inexperienced coach, an inexperienced GM, and expect experienced results. You have, the Mystics who hired someone who delivered results, who brought a ton of, energy back to that franchise damn near right away and being dismissed, right? Like, so I just have a lot of questions more than anything. I have more questions than answers. We'll never know why people in this league get fired or hired, really, because they're never going to tell us the full truth. But I'm starting to wonder, for whom is winning a priority? And if winning is a priority, then what are the steps that they plan to take to get there? Because from the outside looking in, letting go of a GM who, by all outside, appearances, was doing a great job. And then on the Sky side, you have a GM who you have fans chanting for him to be fired in your last game of the season. You have a fan sitting courtside with a shirt asking you to free a player as if that player is in prison. Like, this is not a good, a good leadership example on either side. You have a player, same player, right? Angel, suspended for statements detrimental to the team. And then the reporter who did the interview is like, but you were standing there. Because we all know no one-on-one interview happens without a person from the team standing there listening, or at least halfway listening. So I think on both sides, I'm really curious what the direction is. What is the goal? Do they want to win? Who do you put in place in DC now? Like, how do you say we're going to go from results to a question mark? I'm with Nekias. We must be missing a really big piece. There had to be maybe a disagreement over something, But I just can't imagine a team that wants to win having fundamental value differences with the GM who's putting you on that path.
Yeah, and she's had success on the NBA side and from the outside looking in and the W side in her first year as well. So definitely scratching my head at that one. But if any, teams are looking for a GM who can get you some value and turn things around quickly, Aces, you should probably call. Never mind, never mind. All right, Nekias, the Mystics hold the 2026 draft picks at 4, 9, 11, 16, I think 27 and 28.
Ooh.
How should they use the picks to sort of build around a young core with Sonia, Kiki?
Like, I'm really curious to see what they do from 9 onward, honestly. Because I think sitting at 4, you're just in a really good spot. Someone really good is going to fall to me. Like, so I'm curious to see like what they do. They can go best player available. Like, I'd be curious to see one. I just want to know in the vacuum where Lauren Betts is going to go. Because I feel like based on what this tournament was for her and how it capped off, it seems to be a little bit more momentum building towards, hey, maybe she can just be the number 1 pick. Some of the questions that we had about her defending in space or some of the offensive versatility, like she answered some of those questions throughout the year and it culminated in a championship. If we feel better about this, is she just going 1 or 2? If that's the case, I'd imagine all fam goes early. If I'm Washington, I get one of AZ Fudd or Olivia Miles at 4. I'm feeling pretty darn good about that if that's how it kind of breaks. Beyond that, though, like I would probably like to see some level of consolidation, whether that is let me move up for someone else to really fill out this core, particularly in the wing room, I would say. Or I am trading some of those picks to get future picks so I can build something else out. Because I think going back to Jamila being fired in the report from ESPN, the other thing that was mentioned is we want to add like higher level proven talent around this group. And so I don't think this is a situation where they want to add 4 or 5 potential rookies to this roster. So I think there's going to be a level of consolidation, but it kind of starts at 9 for me. Because I think with 4, you take whoever's best available after those top 3 go, and then we can consolidate from there or trade for future picks from there.
Can you explain the Our Fam craze to me? Because when I spoke to Kurt Miller and Jose Fernandez in December of last year, they seem to be high up on bringing a lot queer back to play for the Dallas Wings. Now that could change. It's been a couple months since I last spoke to them, but they were on the show and they both were sort of on the same page about bringing a lock back. What is so special about Awa that would make her the number 1 pick in this year's draft?
I think for me, and I would say like I'll lead on like the pure draft people for better analysis than this, but from what I've seen from her so far, I think you look at the age and you look at the intersection of athleticism and coordination and some of the passing skill that she has already flashed. And it's like, okay, we have an elite pick and roll threat already. And it normally takes young bigs time to figure out how to screen, how long to screen, when to get out, the angles that they're taking. Then it's catching pocket passes, it's finishing in traffic, finishing over limb. Awa at 19 is already elite at that. And so projecting down the W side is like, okay, cool. This is where a lot of Dallas Wings fans are excited about. Paige Becker is one of the best guards in the league, elite playmaker already. If we get Paige, Our Fam pick and rolls, we are baked into an action that's going to get us good stuff almost every time down the floor. So I think it's that plus while the defense on the interior needs to grow, her mobility allows for a level of like versatility, or at least theoretically so. I can switch out. I can utilize the more aggressive defensive coverages. The Wings were a team, frustratingly so last year, frankly, but they were a team that liked putting 2 on the ball. We'll get our big up to the level. We'll hedge out. And let's see how we play out of that. I think Awa is more equipped to deal with that than like Tierra McCowan was before she was ultimately let go. And so it's a lot of projection because she's also going to be one of, if not the youngest player in this draft class. And I think that's where the excitement comes in for her.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we've seen players like Dominique Malonga be successful, Yanni Fibic come in and be successful, make an impact right away. So you see the overseas players that can come in and make an impact right away to a team. Thank you for helping me better understand her game. Okay, we know the WNBA is entering its 30th season, so very quickly as we wrap up, just what are you most excited about for this season?
I'm actually excited to see history. The fact that we could watch the first millionaire, $1 million contract signing from a women's hoops player is really cool, right? That is significant. It is. The W has been around for all of our lifetimes. We have all been around to watch it from beginning to now. Sorry if I've aged you, but we have all been around, right? It's been around our entire lives. well, yours, for the most part. And like, I think that is so I
Oh.
had to age myself. I'm like, wait a minute, y'all. So, but like, I think that is so significant. $1 million contract, $1 million+ contract. That's huge. If
Mhm.
you look back, I think Cheryl Swoops, she signed the first WNBA contract, right? And her contract was for like 150K. And that was really because they looked at her as you're not just going to be a player, you're going to be an ambassador. That was considered to be a big contract at the time. So now we have someone, we don't know who's going to be first. We have an idea of who it might be, but
Daryl
someone
Atkins. No, I'm playing. Let me stop. Let me stop.
but someone
Angel.
is going to sign that contract, and that is so exciting. Y'all know I love history. I love watching it happen, and we all get to be witnesses to it.
No, I love that. I think for me, naturally, my eyes always go to like what's going to happen on the court, and so we have an entire free agency period and draft to see how these teams are going to branch out. But I'm curious to see like what is going to shift league wide. Are we going to see more of a rise of these double big lineups? Are we going to go back to single big stuff? Like, what are the guards going to look like? What are they going to prioritize? Are we going to see more of the pull up evolution continue? Are we going to see more players more comfortable taking maybe not the 35 footers that Caitlin Clark will take, but just in general, as pick and roll play is increasing across the W, pull ups are going to become more important. Who's going to be able to establish that? We had Becky Hammond on our podcast not too long ago. And one of the things she kind of let slip, we were talking about defense. And she was like, one of the things I've been looking at on the NBA side is how like Chet Holmgren in OKC, Victor Wembanyama with San Antonio, we just kind of use our big as like a one man zone to keep them low on the floor, and we kind of rotate around that. Are we going to see that with Asia Wilson this year, where she was switched more screens than she had ever had in a season last year? Do we see her
She's
more as
certainly
like a
conditioned to
one?
do so.
Yeah, she is. So it's like, okay, so are we going to see like her defensive coverage change in a major way this year as Becky looks to experiment and continue to grow? So I'm just curious to see what league wide trends kind of open up on the floor this year.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of In Case You Missed It with Khristina Williams. I want to thank my friends Shakeia and Nekias for coming on to yap with me. Honestly, y'all, this went on a little bit longer than it was supposed to, but I appreciate them for hanging out. Make sure y'all check out their work at The Athletic and on Yahoo Sports and beyond. Thank you so much, y'all, for doing this.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you.